Mayor and council meeting to order, October 5th, 2015 at 7:30 PM exactly. Our first order of business is to approve the minutes of the mayor and council meeting of September 21st, 2015.
I move the minutes as presented be approved for September 21st, 2015.
I have a correction, then I'll second. The last page, Jen, it was I, not Linda, who raised the issue of this incorrect street sign on Kent Street, which
Oh,
I'm happy
okay.
to report has now been fixed.
Good.
Other than that, I second the adoption of the minutes.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Not that late.
Let the record show that with that one amendment, we unanimously approved passing the minutes. Our next order of business is payment of the bills. Is there a motion to pay the bills?
I will move that bills be paid for the operating balance. Oh, you didn't read the operating balance for checks issued through 10/2/2015.
I have a question. On Recreation Community Affairs, what is Dog on It Parks? 2,321.
Benches, so
Oh,
we're in the
okay.
budget.
And then we have 3 payments to People's Bank
We like that.
under SOS, appropriations, and public safety.
Well, that's probably public's, I don't know what that is.
It's all the same check, Linda. It's all one check.
Yeah.
604,
60247.
Here.
but they're expensed under different.
Yeah, you can split lots of payments on a check.
604,
It's a payroll
line
check?
604,
I don't know.
60247.
203.
No, the
Two-
check
SOS
numbers are this
one.
column.
I'm going by this column, the division code.
Do-
203,
203 is streets, I think.
that says Police Department
under
SOS building. And then line 204 appropriations is a different amount to People's Bank. And then line 604, public safety to People's Bank is a different amount.
I'll go see if I can.
All right.
So it's an expense written on one check, they're all the same check
Are they all the
number.
same check number?
And so it's been divided between 3 departments for one amount.
That's probably our account, our HRA account.
HRA.
It's our insurance for different departments. But I don't know why the SOS building would be on that. But that's where the account for that is. Oh, the SOS building is the loan repayment, isn't it, Chief?
Yes, sir, and they are breaking it out separately from, just so we keep track of it.
Okay. That,
So this
Yeah.
one's a loan
that's debt
payment,
service, yep.
120132.
Mhm.
Appropriations, 2,784.50.
Don't know whether they're breaking out principal from interest or not.
The one that was 2,784.50 was the loan payments for the volunteer fire department, 2015
Yeah.
loan payment. And the one for 3,450.50 was also a loan payment. Let me see which one that was.
I'll have 3,000.
You also got that, what's the program that sends the money to the county for the fire company? It's MUST, or it's got a 4-letter acronym.
AMOS, AMOSS, that's the one that was.
That's the code?
Yeah,
This is a payment that they send us, should have been put in the spring.
yeah, I'm sorry, I can't figure out
The
the,
fire company called Henrietta Maloney and said, where is it? We checked, and it had not been issued to them in the spring. So here's that payment. And that's justified by...
Okay, that's 2,784.
That's justified by the fire company. It pays for their equipment, okay, for their new piece.
So they're all loan payments, all of them.
yeah, and the 3,450.50, it looks like, it looks like a street, to the street crew. Could it be for the sweeper?
It's for the sweeper. These are, the sweeper is like $130,000 piece of equipment, so we'll be paying for it for several years. Same every month.
And that's paid to People's Bank?
Yeah.
Okay.
Any of these things that you want, you can have.
And
Okay.
the third payment for 1275 was our HRA account.
Colorful, isn't it?
Well, that's how I remind myself of.
Oh, that's your color. I
Yes,
like
that's
that.
my
guy. I
color.
think we might have them color it out.
All right, are there any other questions, Linda?
No.
Okay, so there's a motion, to pay the bills.
Second?
There's a second. All those in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Let the record show that we finally unanimously agreed to pay the bills. Okay, next, this gentleman that I'm about to introduce, I actually asked if he would come talk to us. He is the student body president at Washington College. We sat down and had lunch and just kind of shot the breeze about what the mayor does and what the SGA president at the college does, and I said it would be great if we could kind of strengthen our relationship, and that a good start might be for him to come just kind of tell us a little bit about who he is, what he does at the college, and so I am happy to introduce Taylor Fry.
I'm going to move that out of your way.
I don't know, this is fine. I can hold my book. But again, I'm Taylor Fry. I met with Chris once or twice in the last couple months, and I just wanted to come and introduce myself and let you guys know that I'm here as a resource. If you or anybody here has questions for students, anything like that, happy to help them get answered or direct you to the right person that can help answer them. We're doing a lot of different things at Washington College in terms of the Student Government Association. Our team is a bunch of student leaders working on different areas. So we have somebody working on service projects in the community and working with our service groups, and we have somebody working and being liaison with our faculty, and basically every department at Washington College, we've got a student leader in the student government that's being the liaison to that department, working with that department. One thing that I really wanted to do when I came into this job is partner a little bit better with all the constituencies that I work with, and that includes you guys, the town, the non-student residents of Chestertown. I think there's a lot of areas that we can partner better directly with the students and Mayor Sereno. That's one of the reasons why I reached out to Mayor Sereno pretty early on. I'd like to do some more service projects with students in the town working together. And we just wanted to open up lines of communication, know that I'm here as a resource. If there are any issues with students, I'm happy to work on the ground to get those fixed. I'm really grateful to folks from the neighborhood associations, Chief Baker, everybody for coming and talking to off-campus students and on-campus students. Chief Baker and the Kent County Liquor Inspector came last week and spoke to some student leaders in our Student Senate. And it's very productive to keep those open lines of dialogue. Again, just have everybody on the same page, and happy to answer any questions you guys have about student government or student life, what students do on campus, and happy to help in any way that I possibly can. If you ever need students to help you guys with anything, I'm happy to round them up and get you guys the assistance that you need.
What's an example of like a service project that students would undertake, like in the community, for example?
Yeah, so I can talk about, one of the things that we're working on. Chris and I have discussed a little bit about working on the Wayne Gilchrist Trail in Chestertown and cleaning that up and cleaning up the site of the new park, and that's something that we're trying to find a date that we can get a good portion of students to that project and work together on that, potentially. Bring some faculty and staff members from the college as well. I know Staff Council has approached me recently about getting involved in that as well. So things like that where we can try to mobilize a larger number of students to come and help out in the town and any projects that you need sort of support with. Happy to organize that and make that happen. It's something that I'm passionate about doing. In addition, we've got lots of student groups working on different service projects. I know we help Bill with Santa's House through Habitat for Humanity last semester, and I really like making sure that we bring all our groups together and try to work together on some of those projects. So any of those types of projects come up, we're happy to work on them.
All right, I'm
Great.
glad to see a Washington College student in here, and we appreciate anything you do to help the town. We love volunteers, and We're getting to love the Washington College students, so.
That's good. And, again, if there are ever any sort of pressing issues that you guys have come up, feel free to send me an email. I'm happy to reach out to off-campus students directly. I know Dr. Cole, our Vice President for Student Affairs, have worked really hand in hand on that issue over the last couple months, working with students who do live off campus, when things happen. So again, just let me know. I'm here as a good point of contact. If you need my contact information, I'm happy to give it to you. Chris also has it as well, so happy to help.
Well, I read old minutes from many years ago, and the SGA president regularly came to the town meetings to give, would you consider doing that quarterly?
Yeah, that's something that Chris has asked me to do, so I figured this time I'd come and just sort of introduce myself, and quarterly, if you guys wanted, I could give more full reports on things that you're interested in hearing about, whether it's, this type of service that students are doing in the community or out across the country, or whether it's, the types of things that students are doing on campus and not necessarily in the town, ways that we can partner better. Happy to do that.
Would you be able to report on the progress of the Hoya CPIP program and the GIS program that's employing students?
I mean, I could certainly work with those offices to get a report for you. I'd be happy to do that.
It would be nice, you have the media here and
Right.
the SPY, and it would be nice if the residents of Chestertown really, know exactly what's going on in the progress of those. Those are two, programs that I'm familiar with. And I think I have a party house in my neighborhood this year, and I've seen the Shoreman Shuttle
Great.
on my road quite a bit, and Safe Ride, and it would be nice because to get from the college campus, from that house, back to the campus,
Right.
students are walking up and down 213,
Yeah.
which isn't the safest route. And I think if you stress that to use Safe Ride or the Shoreman Shuttle when you're leaving a party would be a good idea.
Yeah, so I can actually give you guys an update on that. That's something I've been working on, with the different constituencies involved, specifically the Safe Ride and Shoreman Shuttle. So a little history behind that. So I think it was last year, Safe Ride, which is a student-run organization, originally started as a Student Government Association initiative, absorbed the shuttle, Shoreman Shuttle, that Buildings and Grounds, the office at the college, had been running for years. So now that's a whole student-run program that provides the shuttle service for off-campus students and on-campus students to get to different places in town, after hours, when it may be dark out and things like that, to sort of give them a safe way to travel, also reduce sort of disturbances in the area. So this year I've sort of reestablished better connections with the Safe Ride program that's now currently being run by a student board separate from the student government, but still advised and sort of overseen by the student government, as well as Jerry Roderick, our Director of Public Safety, really serves as a liaison for those folks and an advisor. So we're currently reviewing the ways that program and that shuttle work, see if we can increase services in any areas with the current sort of resources we have allocated. I'm also looking at if there's any more resources I can pull from my budget to give over to them so they can be more effective or provide better service for students. In addition to that, how can we be more efficient? So how can we pick up students earlier? I'm expecting in the next month and a half or so to release a video specifically about the Safe Ride program via email, social media, and some other sources to the student body as a whole about the Safe Ride program, and just reminding them what it is, when it's available, how it can be used, just so it's really upfront in students' minds, especially the first year and second year that really haven't been exposed to any really intentional Safe Ride advertisement programs in the last couple of years. So we're working on that, and if you guys have any ideas in terms of that, any sort of things that you're hearing or seeing with that program, feel free to let me know, and I'd be happy to include that in sort of our review of that program.
Thank you.
I think it's, I was talking to a Washington College student this afternoon who, a lacrosse player, I told him in years go by, there was a different group of lacrosse players. He was talking about the Safe Ride, and he and some of his friends do use it, so.
Yeah, it's definitely a very well-used program.
Taylor, you're a junior, is that correct?
That's correct.
So your term of office goes through, what,
So-
April or May?
Right, so I started, I want to say late March, I can't remember the exact date, late March last year, and I'll run through late March of this year. I also have the potential to get reelected if I run again, if I choose to do
When
that.
you run again?
If I run again, I have an opportunity to get elected if students decide.
Are you a
that's the
junior?
choice they want to make. Yes, yeah.
It was amazing. We were having lunch and all these students were coming up to Taylor and like talking about like a problem in their dorm. I was like, this guy's like the mayor of the students of this college. It was, the parallels were unbelievable.
Again, if there's no more questions, feel free to communicate with me. If there's any suggestions you have for that Safe Ride program, please do let me know because we are working on that right now.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you so much,
again,
Taylor.
I appreciate it.
All right.
I'd like one.
Okay, Susan McCray.
You need me to let them, or can I just express my...
Take the lectern. Come on, step up. I wouldn't say we need you, but we would love it if you got over there.
You're right.
I'm Susan McCray. I'm on the board of the Tea Party Festival representing Sabine Harvey, our president, who was unable to make it tonight. Next year, 2016, will be our 40th consecutive year of Tea Party in Chestertown. We have applied for a grant, and one of the requirements is a letter of support. So thank you for putting us on the agenda at such a late moment. And thank you all for your unwavering support of the Tea Party Festival. And thank you for signing my letter.
Could you tell us just really quickly what the grant would pay for? Because I
Sure.
think it's a cool initiative.
Yeah, this has been part of Sabine's vision to expand the historical recreation aspect of the festival. So where we have our colonial village currently in front of the courthouse on the lawn, we want to bring in a village market recreation, which would include the merchants and craftspeople who would have populated a colonial village such as Chestertown, candle makers and soap makers and a blacksmith and a goat milker, and create the sutler, who were the itinerant peddlers. Recreation there, and we will have an educational booklet for children, and we will have docents to explain it all. So we're very excited and see this as the first step toward really expanding the historical portion to be a full 50% of the
Now,
festival.
where did you say you were going to put this?
It'll stay on the courthouse lawn. We
Is there
still
enough
have
room
lots
there?
of lawn left, yes.
You didn't think about Wilmer Park, which is much bigger.
I think about Wilbur Park all the time, but we're not there yet.
If it gets big enough, I mean.
If it gets big enough, that would be the perfect place. I agree.
Okay, so do we need a motion to sign this letter of support?
Yeah, I just authorize the mayor to sign a letter of support.
What's the grant category? Yeah,
I make a motion that the mayor sign a letter of support for the 2016 Tea Party Festival grant.
Actually, the letter is in there for signature.
You've got
and
it
has
already.
for everybody to sign,
That's right
if you
here.
don't mind.
Thank you to the ever-confident Jen for taking care of all.
Yeah, Jen was on this,
Are
like,
you still on the board?
I was gonna say, aren't you on the
I'm
committee?
a volunteer. I am not on the board.
And Mr. Holt also.
And we need
We have
volunteers.
the
And we need
EO trader's licenses
Everybody
ready
goes
for
to jobs
the-
that are open.
okay, so
Business friendly.
there's a motion to sign this letter. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Any opposed? I want to sign this right now, and then we'll get it moving around.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. That brings us to Bill Ingersoll, Town Manager's Report.
Okay. Did everybody get a copy of this ordinance,
You missed one.
8, 2009 being converted to ordinance 3, 2015? It's the chronic nuisance property
I got
ordinance.
a copy of it. When did we get it?
Today,
I put it in your box.
in your box today?
And it was emailed to you too.
Why didn't you find the email? Jen, I don't think we got it by email.
Okay.
Well, how about in your
I put it in
boxes?
everybody's mailbox today,
Can we
too. I'll
wait
get
30
them.
days to vote on it?
No, no, next
You
meeting.
didn't put it in Sam's
Oh,
by any
wait.
chance, because I noticed he's got a lot of stuff.
The boxes can be invaluable.
It's really small changes.
I'll explain
Yeah,
it
but
as
we
soon
don't
as we
vote.
get something you can look at.
When it's
I gave it to you with red markings. That's what, you have one.
There you go. What are you gonna do about him? He can't sign this thing. Just have to go off today, or is there a big rush in it?
For him.
For Sam.
We'll figure it
When do
out.
you need it?
They need, it's already late, but they have
Sorry,
an
yeah.
exception to send it
It
in.
could have been made up just for the mayor to sign. What?
I didn't think that Linda had her copy, but
Yeah, okay. So,
Was it in my box?
it was in there this afternoon, but there was an extra copy.
Okay, everybody got one.
Well, I got one now, but, and it may have been there this afternoon, but
This is just the introduction. This chronic nuisance property was originally sculpted to be just residential rental properties. But in doing the enforcement of this, Mr. Tamoy and I both agree that there are other kind of income-producing properties that can have the same maladies and need the same sort of, ultimately, contacting owners about problems within their rental properties. And by rental now, I mean everything. So in this, the red line version, you'll see that we have defined income-producing properties, just taking out dwellings alone. And that throughout, you'll see where it says income-producing. If some place is disorderly, there's a lot of crime, there's a triple play that we call it. Whereas zoning violations, crime, noise, then we'll be able to invoke the chronic nuisance property. It's been effective in the past when we need it. When you have that many offenses, you generally are hearing about it in these meetings, about a property or a property owner, or negligence. It can also be properties that are messy and that combined it with drug arrests or arrests of any kind. So I want you to look it over. We would, hopefully we would repeal this old one and replace it with the 2015 version. It really won't seem like it's any different to you, but we'll certainly run into a situation sometime where it's not strictly a residence, but it is an income-producing property. Any questions?
Would demolition by neglect come under this?
Well, it could, because that could be one of the three problems, that the property is going to seed. Let's say people are selling drugs in the backyard or whatever. Like I say, it has to be three different offenses. And the police work well with case on this. It has to be sort of chronic too. So, and when we say income producing, just because it's someone's not paying rent doesn't mean it's not income producing too. That sort of was the standard for demolition by neglect with the Historic Commission.
I may have mixed it up.
We finally had to remove that it had to be income producing. It was just any property that was being demolished by neglect.
So what do we need to do tonight?
Nothing. This is like the first reading, and
talk about it on the
2 weeks
19th.
from now, if you have any changes, but as I say, we don't use it a lot, but when we use it, we really need it.
Hey, Jen.
Yes.
I want to know why Linda and I are council persons, but Marty and Sam are councilmen.
I will post that question to Case. He was the one who drafted that.
The gender thing,
You're all council
clearly.
members.
Council member, council person.
But I'll also send you out another.
That's the other side of the coin. I never thought that would come up that way. Poor Case, he's gonna be so upset.
On the signatures at the very back.
And the funny thing is, we won't do it that way. We'll have.
Oh, you mean on the original one, or the,
The red line
back
one, doesn't
page.
matter, Marty. It was more of a choice.
because I got one that has member.
No, it's the last
different
page
page.
of the red line version of the ordinance.
All right, so we read this and we revisit it on the
Yeah.
19th.
The other things that I've been asked to bring up,
If I may speak,
okay?
I noticed at the very end of the proposed ordinance that you eliminate the necessity of licensing for income-producing properties.
Where's that?
That is at page 7, 5912, section B, deleted.
5912.
But that's
If you'd like
not,
to see my copy, I can present it.
that's the one that's all deleted, you have it there.
No, that was unnecessary to do. I did not do that.
Okay,
That's, I mean, we can actually amplify that a little bit by just adding it that if there are rental housing licenses, which aren't yet, that would be in play. We're not removing residential from this, we're taking out the exclusivity of it.
okay, you read this about how you lose your license. There's nothing in this statute that talks about how you get a license.
There isn't one.
Why is that?
Because this isn't where you would get a license if we had licenses, okay?
So the ordinance only removes licenses from people that don't have licenses. Fair statement?
Almost, I mean, it would remove licenses from people who had them if they had them.
So for-profit residences don't require licenses, but still the statute requires the licenses to be removed, correct?
No, we just, it looks like you just said we remove the section that removes the license. Can you?
Okay.
It's like a double negative or something? Are you trying to trick me?
You
What
are
is it?
removing licenses from people who don't have licenses.
They don't exist.
Well,
We
so
don't
Why do you
actually-
do that?
I actually didn't do this. Case did this, and I had the same question.
Okay.
What would you like to see in the?
I'd like to see that removed and actually a licensing requirement for-profit residential properties that are not otherwise regulated by the town of Chestertown. That would exclude the motels up at that end of town. That would include people who only lease their upstairs to students, but there would be that middle group who lease to 6 to 12 students.
Right.
They would require licensing.
Well, leasing,
Well, I think in 2008, we hoped that by now we would have licensing. That was the plan.
but leasing to 6 to 12 students is illegal anyway,
No,
right?
that's overcrowded, but
That's more than,
Whatever the number is.
yeah, 3 or 4
You've got a
under.
commercial residence up there, motel, fine. They're licensed by somebody else, I assume. I guess. My concern is why aren't people who are for-profit, not living in the facility, renting to people who, and they are not required to be licensed?
I'm sorry, that you have to say that question again.
I'll say that question one more time. These are commercial institutions.
Right.
They are there for profit. Why aren't they licensed by some entity to provide at least medial sanitation and everything else that comes when you live in a space with other people? And you say,
But now you're talking about commercial properties. That's what
Commercial
you said,
only.
right? Commercial only, yeah.
right,
And I don't think that even in 2008 that we thought we were going to be licensing commercial entities any more than having a trader's license.
Hotels have to have a state license of some sort. don't they?
Well, do we have to wait until we hopefully someday get, you have to have a license to rent, like an apartment, just,
Correct.
separate the two,
right.
whether it's commercial, in a,
Okay, if you're renting an
Commercial
apartment in a
building
large
or-
complex, you're renting to a commercial
or in a
level.
house.
Right. If I'm renting to the people, the 2 students that live upstairs to me, which I don't do, that would be excluded. The issue I present is if you have multiple people living in a house that is for profit, and as your legislation indicates, that's people that don't live in the house with them, why isn't that licensed?
Because we hadn't gotten that far yet, but that's something I would like eventually.
Apartment licensing, is that what you're
Yeah.
talking about?
That's what I'm talking about. But for a median level between my renting a student to my upstairs,
Yeah, okay. I think that anytime that there's an apartment to be let, and I think the idea was that they would someday be registered, whether they were over top of somebody's single-family home or they were in a group of 6 in a building. That is our hope, and that's basically why we hired Case. And we basically have thrown so many other things at him that's fallen by the wayside for now. But, and when we've used this ordinance before, it's really the fines that have been the most effective. It's not the idea of some license that wasn't there being removed. But
The
it's
fines
true.
effect previously on this the old legislation only affects students. It did not affect landlords.
Students. We never talk about students.
Okay.
We talk about.
Tenants.
we
Let's
talk
use the
about
word tenants.
And,
Yeah.
you know,
Right, well-
I think you got to be really careful when you say that. I mean, this isn't about students. This is.
It's about tenants. You win.
Well, I don't feel like I want anything. This is going to improve an ordinance that we already have. I don't think we need to take out the section that you pointed out in case we do launch.
Yeah.
And let me just tell you a quick story about the problems we've had sometimes with units that are motel or hotel units. Items that you would think would be a health department concern, like bed bugs or anything else. I won't say they're blasé, but the first thing they say is that's not really our problem. So I say, well, whose problem is that? You know, basically.
I mean, the owners say that?
No, the health department. So I get frustrated too, and I sometimes wish there were laws for just about everything. But right now, we don't license, hotel rooms. There is a county, they collect a room rental tax.
So that's a county issue.
Yeah.
They collect it for us, and they take 40% of it as they take it. We use the rest to fund the visitor center, et cetera.
But when our police force is being called multiple times to the same
Right. And that's where,
place,
that's where the
then we have a
fines,
problem issue.
the fines come in. Because whether they have a license or not, we should be hitting them hard with fines. I think last year we had a big discussion about noise ordinances, and we found out that actually on our books, we had higher fines than our police department thought.
Well, we raised them.
But it didn't take the noise down.
Actually, it
It
has.
should.
It has.
This would be the first, this would be the first fall that they would be aware of that. And things are rocking and rolling. This
Okay,
really
to get-
was the introduction of an
Look,
ordinance.
Let me just close.
Hold on. This is like, I haven't even read this, all right? And we're having like a public debate about what's in it. Can I please read it before I have like a parade of people talking for 20 minutes about
We
what's not in
have
it?
20, how long?
I
2 weeks?
seriously, I just got this 5 minutes ago. What's that?
Yes, well, there can be public
Yeah,
comment.
after we get a chance to read it, we can discuss it at our next meeting. You're correcting something I have not even read yet, so I mean, I can't really give you an educated response to your complaints or your concerns.
So what is it, 2 weeks to 60
I would
days?
suggest if why don't you guys read this, as I will, and then you can email us or come to the meeting on the 19th, and we could talk about this for an hour. But I don't think right now is the right
think
time,
we'll have
because
an
I
hour
don't
on
even
that.
know what this says. I mean, does that make sense to you?
I guess.
Really, what we want to know, can what you're asking us really be done with this, or are you talking about a different program and another?
We will get back to you on that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Can I just have one point of clarification? I think what I heard Bill Ingersoll say was that, that he wasn't aware that the licensing requirement was going to be removed, and so you're going to correct that?
I don't think it's necessary to remove
Okay,
it,
so does that mean you're
okay?
going to correct what's going to be discussed on the 19th?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I don't know why it was removed. Right now, it's not in use, but if it is in use, I wouldn't want it to have been removed. In fact, I want to expand it to, if we license other things, that if licenses are involved, they'll be jeopardized.
Great. So
I think all we want to know is what it is what you want, you know?
if that correction is made in time for that to be included for the discussion on the 19th, that would be great.
It can actually be.
How did you read this before I read
How
it?
did you all get it? We
I
could-
read the internet, that's why.
It's 9 AM then. We're down at Town Hall.
Yeah, I'm glad-
Actually, right next to
I
your
got
office.
this at 3 o'clock this
Glad-
afternoon.
I'm
You guys are
glad-
on top of stuff, man.
That's good.
impressive.
You should, we did not get it.
It was identified as, I was looking.
Apparently it was on the house.
2009 for the ordinance. And when I searched that on the website, I got up police stuff. The ordinance is actually 08.
I just said it was 2008, earlier.
But on the agenda, it said 03.
Oh, no, it's 03.
That's what I got.
It's the third, this is the third, it's the third ordinance of 2015 is the new one. The other one was the 8th one of 2009, okay? Sorry.
All right, look,
Probably right on both counts.
I was a bit confused for a moment, so I just wondered which you wanted.
I want to move this along. This just got introduced. Let's all get a chance to read it, and we'll discuss it at whatever length we need to on the 19th. Okay?
Anyway, I think what you said we'll be doing anyway, okay?
Thank you very much.
Stay in touch. The mayor asked me to update several things. The Gateway Park, we have a contract with David A. Bramble to carry out the contract on the Gateway Park.
Oh, great.
And we have been pushing them since July. We're asking them when they're going to start, and we understand they're going to start this month. And that is, in their minds, it's not going to be a project that takes them a long time. But we have sod, we have things that need to be done this time of year. We don't want to go into December with this, so we're staying on top of that on a bi-weekly basis. We're annoying them bi-weekly. The solar array update is another thing that people are asking about. We're in the interconnection agreement, the final part of it with Delmarva Power, and Solar City tells me that we can't have any third-party agreements, and so what they mean by that is we can't have been buying power from someone else, but we were, and we have been buying electricity from Integris for 5.5 years at a very affordable rate, very low, and we saved hundreds of thousands of dollars doing that. It turns out that Constellation, who meant to buy out Delmarva Power, bought out Integris and basically swallowed up all of our contracts with Delmarva Power. So I think in the end, believe it or not, it's going to be all right because there's no problem with that. It's a problem with how the extra power created would water fall down and what account it would water fall down on. And I'm sorry, these terms, I don't know these terms, but in our case, it would be like if on the mayor and council side, you produce extra electricity, which account of your 15 accounts do you want this credit put into? Simple as that. So I think within no time, we're going to be online. And I can't wait till you're out there looking at how tremendous this thing. I can't believe it sat there for a month and a half without being activated.
Well, it wouldn't have been working the last 4 days anyway.
Yeah, that's good thinking, Marty. The Fountain Park update, we're doing all sorts of things behind the line to try to continue to upgrade the fountain as we did last year. If you recall, we worked with the Garden Club to widen the sidewalks on High Street so the artisans would have a bigger space and not necessarily be trampling the grass in certain places where the Garden Club wanted to see it thrive. We've been working with them about doing the same thing this fall on a slightly less wide basis on Cross Street. So if you can imagine a slightly wider thing behind the trough on that side, so artisans who are on this side can also be there. Less wear and tear on the grass. We will do that in-house. We haven't asked for any donors, but last year the Lions Club was really nice and stepped forward and gave us a donation for what we did on High Street. We also, should I step into this territory of
I think you could talk about it in concept.
In concept, the Garden Club has an idea of sort of circular benches going around the outside brick circle around the fountain, and they're gorgeous. And they also, in concept, would
would like to carry out that theme throughout with the other benches in the park. More or less Victorian benches. And I've been working with the company Victor Stanley that supplies all our outdoor furnishings, I guess they're called, trash cans and the other things that we buy, and getting estimates from them. The Garden Club is really excited about this. We're going to return with them when we compare finances. If theirs are better than ours, they can buy them all. No, actually, when we've done this before, donors have really wanted to dedicate benches. They've really wanted to dedicate walks. So we're going to continue that dialogue with them. We're also going to do everything we can this fall to continue to fertilize and lime the grass and put sod in where we have bare spots. It did look a lot better this year than ever, and all the things that the Garden Club did last fall in that High Street bed really looked great.
That walkway in the middle was a blessing.
It's huge.
Yeah.
I was watching.
People actually walk up and use it now.
I was watching
Before,
that
they
this
just went
weekend.
across where they darn well felt
It was
like.
a high traffic area
Well-
all weekend.
However, during events, and I sat right there, Legacy Day, and watched people walk on the plants.
Right through it.
They walk on the mulch, on the plants. And the only way that you're going to keep people off of there is maybe put a little wrought iron fence or something around that area. Walk, I mean, just literally
To the
stand.
flower bed.
Right on the hostas.
Electrified.
I would like the revenue from the farmer's market to go towards this. So I make a motion that the revenue that we receive from the artisans and the farmers go towards the renovation of the park continuously.
Haven't we already used it for printing the brochure?
No.
I mean, we do it when we put the
No,
brick
that-
sidewalk down, we're using
that
revenues from
wasn't-
that. I mean,
But I mean, to dedicate all of that revenue to Fountain Park.
All the revenue that
we
we've
were in the middle
gotten.
of a budget year, did we?
Yeah.
Did we?
Starting when?
Now.
From this point forward?
I don't know how to
Well,
tell you
I
how
mean-
much that would be.
Well, it's budgeted. The revenue is budgeted.
That's kind of what I'm saying.
I
It's
think
already-
it's like, yes, but I mean, I want that revenue to go directly to the renovations in the park.
Okay, good.
Not for trash pickup or any other incidentals or anything
Well,
like that.
Why are you asking that? Why are you asking?
Because a lot of times it gets dispersed here and there, and the artisans are the ones who pay. I mean, that's...
Speaking of artisans, some of them are setting up on the grass over on
They
the
will
side.
set up on the grass.
They usually ask if there's sometimes a reason why.
It's
they
not
do
the safest place to be on High Street. They park a car on the corner of High and Cross because trucks have come around there and almost wiped out that first artisan there. It's not the safest place because there are no crosswalk signs on that section of High Street, and traffic doesn't go as slow through that section.
I feel like we're kind of getting off topic here.
I
We're supposed to be
understand.
talking about like widening sidewalks and
But
benches.
I would like them to know they have at least the revenue from the artisans and the farmers.
Well, we'll
to
add
put
it up
in.
but I think that's what last year's brick project, which I didn't total it up and say artisans, we just gave you this, but that's really what the walks were for. So I think they're getting a lot of bang for their buck.
Yeah, that probably, the next 5 years won't pay what we put in for already, so.
Well, the last 5 would
That's sort of
have.
going over what improvements
Or the
we're going to
last
do
10.
to the park itself, and I think that's the draw for everybody, including the walks that are for the artisans. So I hope that's enough within our present budget year.
Okay. And we hope to get to that this fall. Is that correct?
Bill, you skipped the
What about
election
the election
update.
update?
The election update, that's because Jen's going to do the election update.
The petitions for candidacy were due on Friday by 5 o'clock, and we had 3 petitions in. We have Linda Kuiper running for the 2nd ward, Marty Stetson and Stephen Atkinson are running for the 4th. The election will take place November 3rd from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. over at the firehouse. And I've been working along with Shamandia Blake at the election board. She's wonderful. And of course, our board, the Chestertown board, that is great. And I'm trying to keep costs down while keeping an excellent election going. So I hope everybody shows up to vote on the 3rd.
So we're just going to have one booth this year?
I try. I'm trying keeping it as small as I
Hold it.
can.
Come back after lunch and vote then.
No, it'll be a good election.
I have a comment to make. I gave a speech at the community breakfast group, and Steve was there, and after my speech, he came up. Every candidate needs 20 signatures, so he came up and asked if I would sign, and I signed. I didn't sign Marty's because he never asked me. I would have if he had. I just want to make it public, nothing against Steve, and I hope you understand. I am taking officially a position of neutrality with this election for obvious reasons, but I just want to get that out there for the record. So I totally salute anybody who runs for these seats, because
I didn't ask you because I didn't want to put you in that position. Besides that, I couldn't get to you. I had 29 signatures before I got.
So I just want to get that on the record. It is
You're
what it
also
is.
not the only person that signed both, so you have some company.
We're gonna have them up on the screen, the signatures, right? Isn't that why that thing is on?
Friendly.
Of course.
All right, anything else?
No, I think that was enough.
Okay. Yeah, that
Everything I
definitely
said
was
kinda
enough.
blew up with mushroom.
That was enough. Okay, so moving on to my report. River Arts has asked us for a letter of support. They are applying for a grant to the Stories of the Chesapeake Heritage Area. They're going to be developing an exhibit called Humans of Kent County, which will be an oral history and photography project. Yeah, Humans of Kent
As
County.
opposed to
Very
the
gender
chimpanzees,
neutral.
or what?
That basically will be kind of a traveling exhibit that will go to other places in Kent County, as well as an exhibit in River Arts. So they've asked for our support, so I think we might need another motion.
I move that we support the grant application of the River Arts Organization for their new exhibition.
Okay.
I'll second that.
All those in favor? Any opposed? Okay. The second order of business is a resolution for the Town of Chestertown Main Street Improvement Program application. I know our Main Street program, basically, it's a program run through the state. It's essentially an economic development program where you get designated as a Main Street community. A lot of towns in the state that have this hire a full-time Main Street coordinator, like a Michael Day in Berlin is probably the most noteworthy example on the Eastern Shore. For whatever reason, for various reasons, our Main Street program has essentially been dormant for many, many years. We see the hiring of our new marketing and economic development coordinator. Really, her main purpose will be to oversee the Arts and Entertainment District. But if she can allot some of her time to pursuing potential tax incentives that are offered through the Main Street program. They also do a lot of economic development workshops that may be beneficial for her to attend. I think that would be great, and it turns out, in doing a little research, Case discovered that Main Street may be able to pitch in a portion of her salary if we submit this application. So I guess what we, Case actually drafted a resolution. Should I read the whole thing?
I'd read the first and last paragraph.
So this resolution, Town of Chestertown Main Street Improvement Program application. The Town of Chestertown, Maryland has received by application and award the Main Street, Maryland designation by the Department of Housing and Community Development of the State of Maryland and supports the local administration of the Main Street, Maryland program in Chestertown, Maryland. So we resolve that the Mayor and Council endorse and support the Town of Chestertown and its application of the Main Street Improvement Program, and that the chief elected executive official will be and is hereby requested to endorse this resolution. The town manager and zoning administrator are hereby authorized to execute documents and take any action necessary to carry out the intent of this resolution, and that copies of this resolution be sent to the Department of Housing and Community Development. So essentially, it's a resolution that we will allow this employee to spend part of her time resurrecting this program so that we can take advantage of the benefits that it offers that we really haven't been able to do since we haven't had that staff person.
Okay. I believe the Main Street Director is required to attend a training which can be anywhere across the United States. What is the cost involved, and how are we going to pay for it?
I don't know, because I don't know where it's going to be held.
I'm sure they have more than one training. If they,
Yeah.
the thousands and thousands, there's probably one in.
I'd like to find out where it's going to be, if it's in thousands of locations, and how much additional cost that is going to be.
Why would she have to go to that if we haven't had anybody doing anything for years?
Well, if you're going to designate her as the Main Street,
It's in Maryland Main Street, though, it's not.
Yeah, it's not a national program, it's only in the
It should be in
state.
Maryland. Well, we'll find out.
yeah, I need that, I think that needs to be clarified.
We've never left the state of
And just
Maryland with this
because of the
program.
cost.
I agree, I don't want to fly anybody to California to learn
Yeah.
about economic development in
Well,
Chestertown.
We just wouldn't do it. That's
Yeah,
all
I
there is
agree.
to it. Just don't fund it.
So, other than that,
Well, I
I think
don't
we
think she's
agree
gonna pay her own
conceptually not to
way.
fly this person somewhere.
Yeah,
Can we
but I would like to
conceptually
see if
endorse
there's,
this?
yeah, the cost, because it's been dormant, and if we name somebody, designate somebody.
It'll stay dormant if we don't take some steps to change that.
Yeah, but
We have about
You know, where I-
$600
if she
left in that.
has to
There is some money in
take
there.
training to be the official, representative.
I think
I
it will
said
be in
before,
the
if it gets to be, we go ahead and do it, and then if they say you have to send them to Alaska.
Yeah,
we're
we
gonna
don't do it.
We'll say, well, we're not sending anybody to Alaska. What do? They don't come take your main street away from you.
So, are we all right to sign this resolution?
I think,
I see.
I would move you sign it.
Second.
All those in favor?
All right.
Any opposed? All right, sign it right now. Okay, kind of a neat little project. The Little Free Library Open House at Mount Vernon Avenue. Little Free Library is basically, someone who owns a private residence decides they're going to put a little tiny library in their house, and it'll be open to the public at times. This is being initiated by a couple, Cheryl and David Hoops, that live on Mount Vernon. They're doing it as a way to honor David Hoops' mother, Betty, who worked at the Kent County Public Library for over 30 years. They are having an open house to celebrate the opening of their Little Free Library on Mount Vernon Avenue on Friday, October 16th, from 3 to 6. So I'm sure I'll see all you guys there.
October what?
October 16th.
Oh, I see it. It's right here. I'm
3
writing
to
it down.
6 p.m.
Okay. I got you.
All right. Hospital update. As you guys know, the Ivy-Sol injections on the phase 1 of their remediation plan have been ongoing. Last meeting, I basically reaffirmed that I could go forward and try to contact Secretary Ben Grumbles at MDE to try to set up a face-to-face meeting to pursue a consent agreement, which we've discussed at length at these sessions previously. It turns out Secretary Grumbles is very hard to get a hold of. I made at least 2 calls. Bill made a call. We never could get a hold of the guy. So I ended up sending an email to all the players we've been working with, Horatio Tablata, Chris Ralston, and others, and to Secretary Grumbles. And I finally got a reply from all of those guys, but also Secretary Grumbles' main assistant. Her name is Kathy Bishop, and she says, Mayor Serino, do you have an assistant I should work with to set up this meeting with Secretary Grumbles? So I said, no, we're really small. You could just set it right up with me. Give me like several dates that work for the secretary, and I'll see if any of those dates work with my schedule. And that was yesterday. So I'm still working on that, but we have contact. We have contact with the mothership, and hopefully that meeting will actually happen, and we can see if they'll back us up on a consent agreement. And the main thing that we want, again, is somebody to spell out who is financially responsible in a worst-case scenario if these contaminants escape the cone of hydraulic control and we need to drill new wells. How does that work? Who pays for it? What's the time frame? And, you know, if somebody could post a bond, that would be ideal. So that is still ongoing. It's kind of been an adventure trying to get a hold of people, and that's where it stands.
I was smiling because it's always, you get your people to talk to my people. You know.
Yeah, right.
Like we got lots and lots of people.
All right, so that brings us to Liz Gross, study of handicapped accessible areas in Chestertown.
One of them works. Is it only work on this one?
This TV always turns itself off after a little
Oh,
bit.
I didn't even notice that was on. All right, so, you know, I looked at the agenda until
Think about doing
3
some
o'clock this
lights.
afternoon. It didn't have much on it. So I thought this would be a good try.
I didn't think it had much on it when we sat down here, Liz.
Wait, what's happened to my cursor? Oh, Jen. I lost the cursor.
I just saw it flying by.
There it is. Yeah, but that's not what I'm seeing. It doesn't help me. Close this box. Oh, I just closed it, right? Forgot this is a touch screen. Yeah, all right.
There we go.
So this little study developed in part from my personal frustration in dealing with somebody who has a handicap and an awareness that we do have some obstacles in this town. We're better than lots of places, but I think we can do better. And I just want to start by saying when we think of issues like handicap parking, we tend to think of people in wheelchairs, but there are other kinds of disabilities that impact people's mobility. Like in my case, you know, near total blindness, or people with severe breathing problems have difficulty walking much distance. So I have a few topics that I wanted to talk about: the parking spots that we have and how they could be improved or replaced, our curb cuts and ramps, one or two comments about parks, public toilets, and accessibility to buildings. Now that is a big issue. I just want to mention it very briefly. It's way beyond what I have done so far. So the first issue is our handicap parking spots. We have some really, really good ones in town. The one on the left is at the rear of the the breezeway that goes through the building where Dunkin' Donuts is located. The reason this one is so good is that it has space on the driver's side. So if the driver of a vehicle is the handicapped person, it's easy for them to get out of the vehicle. The space on the right-hand side is merely marked striped for no parking because it's the entrance to the breezeway. The one on the lower right is in front of Chesapeake Bank there, and that is an excellent parking spot because it's at a corner. It's right by a crosswalk that has a decent, although not perfect, curb cut. But the reason it's good to be on a corner is if a person is driving a wheelchair van that loads from the rear, they can get their chair on and off, which you can't do if you have another car parked behind you. So, and then there's an excellent spot in front of the Nearly New Shop with space on the driver's side. Again, actually has space on both sides. But it's a complicated route to get from that particular spot to any, or it goes straight, it goes nicely into Fountain Park, but it's difficult to get to a curb cut to get across any of the streets. So what I have here is an aerial map of Chestertown, and the red crosses are existing handicap parking spots. So you see we actually have quite a few. A lot of them have some problems. And the kind of magenta colored arrows are places that I want to mention where we have really great spots that we can potentially either replace some of the poorer ones or add more. And I would note that there is no handicap parking spot on High Street. Let me point that out, if I can make this one. Yeah, it's not going to reach that far. There isn't any handicap spot on High Street between Cross Street and Spring Avenue. And there isn't any handicap spot currently on Cross Street, anywhere actually, between Maple Washington intersection and Cannon Street. Here are a couple of really bad handicap parking spots. These are both very close to each other on High Street. And they are located on either side of the crosswalk that goes across to the Stan building from approximately where the old newspaper office was, or Doug Ashley's real estate. And the problem with both of these is that the passenger door, so in my case, I'm trying to get my husband down a passenger side of the vehicle, you can't either open the door or then there's nowhere to step because there's a pole or in the case on the left, a planting. So those spots were probably originally requested to serve STEM drugstore, and there used to be a doctor's office there, which is still there, which is a very good reason to put in handicap parking spots, but these don't quite do the job.
Are there spaces, like, if you just went one space up?
Yeah, well,
Like, did you,
yeah, you could move one up.
I mean, just asking, would that be
Identify
better?
there. It's not that far from the one at the Chesapeake Bank, but it is some distance for someone who has difficulty walking. So yeah, you could move them. Well, you can't move the one on the left. You can't move it forward because there's a crosswalk. But the one on the right, you can't move it forward because there's a crosswalk there. The one on the left, you could move it up to where that red car is. And it would be a lot better.
Can I ask you a question there? With the parallel parking places that are across on the island, would that be a better place?
I've got that one more.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't come to that. Actually, it was on that map. I could go back to that at the end and show you. There are 2 handicap spots at Wilmer Park, and that's my vehicle parked in one of them. To get out, you see there's a curb cut there and a ramp, or not a ramp, but just a paved path going into the park. But the spot in front of that curb cut is not marked, no parking, nor is it striped in any way to prevent someone parking there. So I should have given thanks to Jen Baker, who's a friend of mine, the co-owner of the wine and cheese store. She actually went around town with me in her motorized wheelchair and pointed out things that I hadn't thought of. She went to walk her dog in Wilmer Park yesterday evening, and she drove over there and could not get out of her car because someone was parked in that spot and she couldn't get into the park.
So would the solution be to just make that also handicapped?
Yeah,
No,
paint it
just,
out.
well, to stripe, no, you don't want somebody parking there. You
Just
need to
stripe it
stripe
instead,
and
I
put up
got
a
you,
no
sorry.
parking sign.
That was kind of a dumb question.
Yeah, so the other handicap parking spot is on the other side of my car in that picture. So
Is that one you're talking about marked like a parking place, or do people just park there and
there's
shouldn't
a
be?
stripe, on the left-hand side of the picture is a curb. So that's the last spot, right down, if you pull in from Cross Street, Quaker Neck Road there, into that parking lot there, the very last, well, the 3 spots facing the park. And this one here on the left side is the curb before you get onto the grass.
Yeah.
So what you're saying, the solution is to
Eliminate that parking
paint
spot.
that,
Paint it,
paint it into a walkway.
yeah, and put up a no parking sign equivalent to the handicap parking spot.
I
So
think-
that wheelchair ramp. So this one is really easy and inexpensive to do.
Is that a sign in front of your car?
Yes, a handicap parking sign.
Okay.
I think we repaved that a few years ago when we upgraded the park, and I bet it just didn't get crossed out like it should be.
Now, in reference to Wilmer Park, there are 2 accessible entries. So there's one at the very end of Front Street, or Water Street. But neither one of them actually joins up easily to the walking path. And the porta potty that's down there is not accessible to a handicapped person. There are handicap versions available. And lastly, in reference to parking spots, check out this building when you leave. The handicap parking spot is on that side at the corner of the building, but the wheelchair ramp is on the far side, just to get up that little, we only have a little small step. So it's somebody coming out of the handicap parking spot in a chair, or has to go to the other side of the building to get up, to get into the building. So the next thing I wanted to talk about is curb cuts and ramps. And here, I think I might have missed one. Yep. Here we have some issues with curb cuts. So the photo on the left shows that not all of our curb cuts are actually level with the street. And it's hard to see the three-dimensionality here, but that curb cut is, I believe it's going into Fountain, from across from the Boardley Building going towards Fountain Park. That one is probably about 1 inch to 1.5 inches high, and Jen was unable to get across that ramp. Her little wheels on the front of the chair jammed up against it. And then we also have poorly maintained curb cuts like this one, which is on the other side of the street, with bricks missing and cracks in the curbs. Now, the problem on the left is expensive to fix, obviously, but I would request that in future, when we have paving projects going on in town, it's something that we keep in mind and try to fix as we can go along. The maintenance on a lot of the others is probably really inexpensive, and it's just something that we need to pay more attention to. Then there's some more serious ones. This, unfortunately, the one on the left is the curb cut right behind that excellent parking spot in front of the Chesapeake Bank. Now, I think most chairs can probably get through there, and there's not a lot we can do about those poles, but a larger chair might not get through. And in fact, right at the very edge of the picture, you see one of the beautification group's planters. When they originally planted it, it was right in the middle of that curb cut. And I actually asked them, this is a year or two ago now, to move it, because it was, as you came off the crosswalk, you were stumbling, at least my husband was stumbling into something he couldn't see there. And then the one on the right is one example of quite a few, unfortunately, where we have, coming out of the Evergreen Bakery, an excellent curb cut, but there isn't one on the other side of the crosswalk. So you kind of get stranded there. Or we have a number of corners where you might have to go out into traffic, where traffic is turning around a corner to get to the cut 90 degrees around the corner.
Well, there's no cut on that corner in my ward, and there's no cut across the street in your ward. And even if there was,
There is one across the street, but it's
there's
very
no
poor
way
shape.
you can maneuver a wheelchair
No.
down your section of the brick sidewalk.
Yeah, the brick sidewalk. And then this one is a specific issue. This is the crosswalk from sort of near the steps into Emmanuel Church going across to Fountain Park. There's a good cut there, and the cut on the other side is around the corner, but to get to it, you have to go over this grate, which I guess is a storm sewer there. And the small front wheels of a lot of wheelchairs get trapped in that grate.
Wow.
So you've got to go right around it, which is well out into turning traffic. Jen showed me, she got on that grate and she got jammed.
And that's about one of the smallest grids for those grates.
So I'm not sure what the solution to that is, other than relocating the cut.
The cut.
At some point. And then finally, I just wanted to mention that, handicapped people need toilets too. The only public one I know of that we have in town that's not in a business is the visitor center when it's open. Now, a lot of business owners may not know this, and I hope this is something that our new economic development person can bring to their attention, but the state, well, backing up a little bit, any building owner who would be willing to increase accessibility would be a huge benefit to everyone involved. And the state does have something called modification grants that provide funds to business owners for improving accessibility of their facilities. Something like 20% of the cost of the renovations, up to $16,000. And that might be something that some people would agree to do. At the wine and cheese store, they have a sign at the front that says you can go around to the back where they have a ramp. And, you know, several businesses do have back entrances that may be more accessible than the front ones. I know in a historic district, this is, you know, really an issue, accessibility to businesses. And finally, we have an issue with the Historic District Commission. I think this is something that we could easily fix, and that we need a method to sort of fast track approvals for accessibility improvements to private homes. So it took Jen and her husband almost 2 months to get approval for the wheelchair ramp at their house, because when they moved here, the Historic District Commission had just met. And so they had to wait for the next meeting and then, you know, get the approval, get the permit and everything. So in some towns, they have a system for their zoning administrator or their case de moy equivalent to approve things like that, you know, personally, and then bring them for final approval to the next meeting. I think we need to do something like that. Let's say you have a resident who has a stroke and comes home and needs a wheelchair ramp in a hurry. I mean, they shouldn't have to wait a month for something like that. So that was my...
In fact, I just did one last week for somebody who has an emergency, and I wonder, I did it. I'm about to find out how well it goes over with the Historic Commission.
Well, we might need to formalize something.
I think that's a good idea.
Basically, it was unobtrusive, it was in the rear, and it made a lot of sense, but, so we did it.
So just to summarize, I've got a few suggestions that I passed over during my presentation. But basically, I think that the more we can do to make Chestertown more appealing to more people, the better off we'll all be. And I'm sorry Sam's not here, because I wanted to make the point that improved accessibility for both residents and visitors is a good marketing tool. So some of the specific suggestions that I had were giving up perhaps some of our poorly located handicap parking spots and install a few new ones at the specific locations that I had in the map, which I can pass on. Stripe the parking spot with the access to the wheelchair cut at Wilmer Park. Install a ramp on the north end of Town Hall. That's this little step here, closer to the handicap parking spot, possibly with a door buzzer, so that somebody who's sitting there at the door doesn't have to wait for Anna, who's around the corner, to notice that there's somebody there to be let in, because we have very heavy doors. Improve the maintenance of the curb cuts, and then as paving projects do happen, let's get some of the curb cuts that are too high lowered relative to the new paving. And perhaps some new ones to better match up across streets where there are crosswalks. And develop a mechanism for more efficient approval of urgently needed accessibility improvements to homes in the Historic District Commission. Publicize the availability of state funding for business owners to improve their own buildings for accessibility, and investigating the cost of replacing the porta potty at Wilmer Park with an accessible one. And that's that. Thank you very much.
Can I make a suggestion right away that anything that needs to be improved on state roads? Are you going to give that to your representative that's sitting on the task force? Because
Oh, yes.
They promised.
That representative, I'm sorry.
Yeah, they promised to include handicap accessible, whatever designs in all the intersections
I
for the
believe the
sidewalks.
gentleman that came in here said if they put a handicap walkway on one end of the street, which happens to be on a state highway, then they have to put one on the other end, even though it's not on the state highway. So that would make it, if they put it out here 213 coming on there, then they would have to do it down here. I'm pretty sure he said that.
Well, I'll double check
When he was
because-
talking about sidewalks and so forth, and he said even though it's not on a state highway, if we do it on one end, we gotta do it on the other end. I guess the theory behind it is if you get a person they get up there and they can't get off, then they're not going anyplace. So we may be able to solve some of that problem by having them do the work.
Yeah, there's cases too where Cross Street itself is a state road, and I've asked them at the intersection of Cannon Street, where there's in front of James and in front of the shop that you're talking about, they're not gonna let me do that. They're gonna wanna do that, so I asked them to do it. This was 6 months ago.
To do what? To put in a...
Put handicap, matching handicap curves on
Yeah.
all four
That's that corner.
Cross Street sides of the,
It's also dangerous because it's such speeding traffic, but those are the spots that I marked for better parking. They're all, in all cases, they're the first or left, depending which way you look at it, the corner spot. So there's one in front of what's now the Sultana building, one in front of the wine and cheese shop. There is one at James.
no, but it only goes one way. It doesn't go
Yeah.
the other way, and that's what I'm talking
Yeah.
about. On the Cross Street side of the street, there aren't handicap ramps, and that's a state road.
I see what- yeah.
You've done them on the, the ones that
Some of them
go
would need cuts
perpendicular.
with it.
I'd like to see you come up with a solution when the car pulls in there and the handicap, and they got one of those little blue things or tags, and a 17-year-old high school student hops out of there and runs into the restaurant. That's what I'd like to see.
My husband says that only handicap that person has is a moral handicap. Linda, do you see the one I marked on that little island there by Memorial Park? That either side of that island could be a really good spot. And then the other one is up on High Street, right on the corner by People's Bank.
You know, there was one in front of where the new micro distillery is going. We had a handicap space there. I don't know what's happened to it.
So what would be the best way to follow this up, just for you and Liz?
Well,
to
I'm
work
going
on
to
this?
take an easy list and a hard list. I'm going to sit down with Liz and our masons as we can. We're going to do the ones we can. We're going to alert the state highway to the ones we want them to do. And there's a special way now. You just can't level the curb like we used to. There's mats that and
And
so
now we
we
get rid of that brick problem, where the concrete joins the brick is where they get broken up.
But I'd like to sort of get a priority list of easy and a priority list of hard, and we'll just start working on it.
I'll send you this, but I'll make that list and describe better where these
Because
particular...
down by Evergreen, that looks like stuff that we can do, because the walks aren't that much higher. We can make a new curve, probably the curve's busted anyway.
All right, so the action items are for you to create the list,
Yeah,
and then for you and Bill to
yeah, I'll do that.
divide it into things we can do really easily in-house, because some of those suggestions just throwing some paint on the ground.
Yeah.
And great report, that was really
Thank you.
insightful. It's really nice, I mean, it's nice to have Jen to be able to very graphically show the shortcomings of
I mean, she's a
our
fit-
facilities, yeah.
fit young
Yeah, right.
person. You take somebody like, I don't know if you all know Carolyn Hooper, or, there are plenty of other people in
Right.
town who probably suffer more than Jen does.
Well, thanks,
Thank
Liz.
you.
Liz, was that the entire list that you went over? Did you go over each spot in town, or did you have more?
I have them all recorded on that map.
Oh, okay, because I was going to say, I wrote down every one as you
I
were
might
going
have
through
missed-
for a list, too.
Was that one you mentioned on High Street, like where the old Chestertown drugstore?
Yeah,
Is that one?
just one this way.
I'll check that
There's
on my way home.
there's a crosswalk that goes to the island in front of the hospital.
The Narrowing.
Yep,
Nearly no.
and there's ramps there. There's ramps there too.
There's one in front of Nearly New, and there's one behind Nearly New, but
Right.
it's really hard to get to the post office.
I don't think that one's legal, but it's used all the time. I think we have to make it.
Behind it?
Yeah,
the one that's just off the street, I mean, they're
Larker Bri-
used.
Larker
Whether-
Briar Farms Park
Whether
Center
they're
and
perfect or not, they get used.
Well, the one in front of the Nearly New that I finally got there, it's hard to get into. It's hard to get in. I mean, it's hard for somebody who's handicapped
Driving.
to get into the
Not
driving
an
into
easy place to
space.
turn into. But I'd also like to ask the chief, to have his officers look for the handicap tags or plates on cars that are using handicap spots, because they are
It's
abused.
$80 fine.
I'd love for you to be here when, there's never been one of those tickets given that wasn't wrong. They come in here, oh, I had the thing was home and I bring it in and I mean,
Well,
it's,
I challenged a woman once
Jeez.
who was getting out of a car down by one of these two spots. And I said, the handicap to me. And she said, well, I have my mother with me, her elderly mother. I said, okay, fine. And I saw them, 20 minutes later, and she'd walked all the way up and was still going around the farmer's market. So I don't think that it was.
Well, they have to have a handicap
Well, we
tag.
need to pass an ordinance where you can ice pick their tires if they park.
Hard.
All right, that's
you're
when,
in the middle of your campaign and you're,
that's when I know it's time to move on in the agenda, when that starts happening. Okay, so let's go to ward reports. Start with Marty.
Well, oh, wow, this is 2 weeks in a row.
Yeah, man. Well, let's just talk.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right, probably needs that. In case you didn't know, I'm wearing my purple tie. For those who watched the game Thursday night, the Ravens beat the Steelers, and I hope I get to wear this lots between now and Super Bowl time, but I'm not so sure. I went to the installation of the president of the college. It was very, very nice, but I think what was kind of neat was we had Bill Ingersoll march into possession, Sam Sorging, and of course our mayor. So when you think about that, that's quite a representation to have at the college. So, and she did a very nice job of, and it was a good function. We all got, half the town got a free lunch, so it was a nice night. I am going to just comment briefly on the election. At least we're going to have an election. I was concerned somewhat that if Linda didn't have anybody run against her and I didn't have anybody run against me, we were going to be paying all that money for nothing. So we are going to have an election this time. And I'll tell you, Linda, it's hard to get people out when there's nobody running against you.
All I need is one vote, don't I?
that's all, you
Yeah, well,
can't be beaten by a right.
I got the same amount I got
I
the
mean,
first
I
time.
don't have
but
a margin
It was
to
because
worry about.
I did a little effort to it. But,
You don't have to spend a lot of money.
my opponent, I know my opponent. He's a nice guy. He ran against me 8 years ago. Didn't do too well, but he's had a lot of practice since then because he's ran for several offices since that time. And I wish Steve all the best of luck, just not for this office, maybe for the next time he files. And that concludes my, I was going to say something, I can't let that go by.
Yeah, but you can only hope.
Right. Hey, by the way, for the camera, he's sitting right down here. I'm not saying this behind his back.
Man, can't hear.
I gotta give him
Job
something. Well, you
suicide.
keep on running like that, sooner or later, you'll get it, so. Just not this time.
All right, Sam's not here, so we'll go to Linda.
Okay, if you missed the lighting of the Sankalpa, you're not going to see it again. It met its demise on October 2nd. And I had a little, hold back the tears with Alex Castro, when I saw it laying down at the marina. So anyway, it was majestic, and the core group of people that worked on it were there for the lighting, and the rest of the people I've never seen before. And Alex said that it was visitors who came and stayed from the time of the end of the Riverfest to the lighting, and it was just wonderful. And I really hope that we could do something with events like this and get organized with Kay to just do a question, just walk around and ask people, do you live here, where are you from, so that we can get an idea of where the visitors are coming from. And, like I said, there was several hours before, after the Riverfest ended and the lighting, so that was wonderful. Then, I cannot say enough and thank the people enough who put together the Harry Potter Festival. All of the volunteers and all of the businesses, 22 businesses participated in the scavenger hunt. And People's Bank was Honeydukes, and when I went through Honeydukes, probably between 12:30 and 1, the girls were saying, we could not believe how many people went through that early in the day, and it was maybe like double the year before. And
It was packed in the Fountain Park. The
It
mayor was
was.
there and I was there, and you could just barely move with all these little people with capes and sticks and, I don't know.
the weather didn't stop the people, and I'll tell you one thing, we had to Google some of the answers on the,
That's cheating,
on the
Linda.
Some of the stores gave you the answer, and all you had to do was write it down. And then other ones, you had to figure out what the answers were. But there were kids lined up to get in the businesses, so you knew, before you even looked at the one you had to go to next, you could see the crowd outside of each business. Then, I tried to get the Garfield to apply for this several years ago. This is coming up, the 2016 Maryland Preservation Awards.
We got a huge grant at the Garfield for the
Well,
renovations.
No, this
means the
is the award.
Oh, sorry.
And it's kind of short notice. The applications have to be in the end of September. Yeah, I think it's September 30th, and you can go online. I know that there is some organization, some restoration
October 30th.
around Chestertown that could apply for this. And
There's been winners from here before.
what have we had?
Brooks's Tower,
Brooks's Mill?
Yeah.
But anyway, they give you short notice. It comes out the 1st of September, and the deadline, I'm sorry, September, what am I thinking
Yeah,
about? It's October. The deadline is October 30th, but I follow that every year.
GR too.
So anyway, that's it.
Yeah, I was actually glad it wasn't 75 and sunny, because I don't know if the town could have handled too many more people. That is going to be a monster if they keep doing that. It is
Well,
really tapping into
I
a little
forgot to
genre
say,
of people that is,
the president of
Intense.
People's Bank turned into a wizard.
yeah, that was funny.
And
They get into it. They go all
People's
out.
Bank turned into Honeydukes.
Okay, Liz.
Well, I'm sorry I missed all that. I was up north in Canada for a family visit, but it sounds like it was a lot of fun. I don't think I have anything else to report. I've taken enough time tonight.
Okay, requests from the public to be on the agenda, there were none. Are there any questions or comments from the audience?
wow.
All right, we're almost exactly on 1 hour, so I need someone to make a motion to adjourn really quickly.
Move to adjourn the meeting.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
All those in
and a half.
favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
We are unanimously adjourned, Jen.